Hi everybody, today's conversation is with Ken Doyle. He's the owner of Getting Results Inc., a business coaching company that's geared primarily to the financial services community, and he helps people make more money and have more fun. In this conversation, we go into depth of some different strategies and ways to increase performance and live a more fulfilled life. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with my friend Ken Doyle.
Welcome to the Preferred Shore podcast. Here's your host, Robert Milligan.
So Ken, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Been really looking forward to this conversation, and we want to get into your background professionally, personally, but maybe if you could just start by sharing some of your background and what you do.
Sure. So what I do for a living is I help elite people become elitier.
Okay.
If you will. And I like to make up words, so it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Great. I'll try to hang.
My company's called Getting Results Inc. We founded the company in 2002. Mm-hmm. I started coaching financial advisors in 1999, and then we started our own company in 2002. I can tell you the funny story of how taking the shot at the dream. I had the ultimate job back in 1999 when I started coaching. Previous to that, I was in financial services. I was in institutional sales. I was in management. I had a team of 20 people. We eventually hit $1 billion in assets. And as my career accelerated, I think it was in lockstep because literally I have a real life sensei. I have a real life Mr. Miyagi in my world. When I was younger, I was studying an art called Ketsugo Jujutsu.
Wow.
And what was interesting about the art, as I learned more, as I progressed towards my black belt, my responsibilities increases, my staff increased, my revenues increased, everything about my world got better because I had a sensei, a teacher. And I'll never forget, I was 27 or 28 years old, and I had a corner office in Boston overlooking the harbor. I was on the fast track. I was the golden boy, if you will. And one of my guys walks in the office and says, "Hey, Ken, can you cover a meeting for me?" Like anytime one of your people says that, you know there's a catch. And he says, yeah, it's a great meeting. It's at a resort. I'm like, where? He's like, it's in Ohio. Now, if you ever had Ohio and resort in the same sentence is not true, right? What it really means, it's a golf club with a bar. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going out to the middle of nowhere in Ohio, and I'm presenting a little bit, and I'm running, shaking babies and kissing hands, or whatever you do to work a crowd. Back then, that's when it was legal. Okay. Shake babies. Shut up. Just kidding. That's wrong. Sorry. So, as I'm in the audience, this guy walks out, and my sensei was horrible in business. I mean, he was horrid. But never had two nickels to rub, but he had a beautiful understanding of the art. And truly helped me, but in the money side of things, he's horrible. Hopefully he'll never listen to this, and hopefully he's doing much better now. But back then, hard. And so this guy comes out, and he's very elegant, very loquacious, and basically he says, "Ken, what are you doing with your business? You know you're going to die, don't you?" And Sensei would say the same stuff. He'd say, "Ken, what are you doing with your life? You know that this life is finite. You want to live to the fullest, be the best that you can be." And then I started scratching my head. I said, my God, what would it be like to have a business sensei? Like, what would it be like to have a true teacher who had all his stuff together? And so, and it was part of his sales pitch, right? Like all gurus or Anthony Robbins types figures.
Sure.
If you do this, you come with me now. Gave me the piece of paper, right? And I took that piece of paper. I'm really excited. And I went to the bar and lost it. So that opportunity was missed. Until about 6 months later, about a year later, 6 months to a year later, I'm riding up the elevator with my chief sales officer. And he says, "Ken, we're doing this event in Florida, and we need a speaker. Do you know of anybody?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I do." So the guy who said, "What are you doing with your life? You're going to die," came back and did round 2 of the speaking. I said, this time I'm going to join. We used to have our classes on the top of the World Trade Center, back when the World Trade Center was standing. Within 6 months of working with him, my income increased on about 50%. And then I had that moment, I'm like, I think this is what I want to do.
Wow.
So I took the time, took me about 4 months to convince him that he should hire me to run his company. And it took me a while, but I eventually did. Sold all my stuff in Boston, gave up my licenses, and took the shot at the dream to go do a startup company out in California, out in San Diego, California, with my mentor, and it was amazing. It was amazing. We did one of these. It was a rocket, meteoric rise, getting picked up in limos, doing events, speaking. It was a very fast and wonderful lifestyle until it wasn't, right? Until it literally evaporated within 2 or 3 years. And I had lost all of my money, so we had to invest money. And so I put my credit card numbers in there, my stuff. I was owed about $150,000 and I had about $40,000 of company debt on my card, and then it evaporated. 9/11 hit, that business hit. I ended up being homeless, or I got evicted from my stuff. So,
Wow.
So way back when, I'm sitting in San Diego, California, on Pacific Beach. My last $10, bought a 6-pack of Corona, and literally cried in my beer because I took the shot at the dream and I missed. Right? It's an interesting place to miss and to lose everything. At that time, my girlfriend said, "Hey, you know what, Ken? I think we can do this. And I think we can do it better. I think we've learned a lot. I think we can really take it to the next level." And I said, I think I may want to go get a real job.
Seems reasonable.
Right? Maybe go get a real job, go back into corporate world. And so I started flirting with corporate world. I got some really good interviews. Was flown into Houston to go run a big company's training department. You know, I'm in the mix. Everybody's got their ties on. Everybody's slick. And they're like, "Come on, Ken, why don't you work for us?" Now, mind you, I had nothing. And I'm like, this is a salary. It's money again. But I go back to California, sort of sitting with Lauren. I'm like, nah, I can't go back. I don't want to go back to the corporate world. And Lauren said, all right, we can do it. Now, Lauren is obviously now my wife.
Right.
Then in June of 2002, Getting Results officially came into existence, and we've been running since.
That's fantastic. And, you know, people don't understand sometimes that, you know, to be an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to go for broke and sometimes you do, you know, and that doesn't mean that, obviously you're living proof that doesn't mean that if you're, you know, if you're down and out for a little while, it's not like you can't start over again. So
it's like, and that's a great point, is that to be an entrepreneur, or I like to say, but I don't call myself an entrepreneur. I call myself a capitalist. Not that I'm a good one, but I really like the word. And it seems to make people angry. It's
a powerful
when
word.
You say it. Yeah, what do you do? Well, I'm a capitalist. What does that mean? Well, it means taking risks. Because one of the most beautiful thing that happened to me when literally I was crying in my beer and losing everything. And here's a fun story. Here's that one. June 2002, I call up my mother. Mom, I'm creating my own company. It's amazing. And she's like, oh, Kenny, that's good. Do they have health care? And I'm like, no. Oh, she's like, okay. Do they have a 401k? I'm like, Mom, it's my own company. No, we don't really have any revenue. She's like, Kenny, what did I put you in college for? What are you doing?
Right.
Then to roll that forward 5 years, then she's seeing how we live. And she's like, oh, Ken, I'm so glad I supported you when you went to Getting Results. I'm like, Mom, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. But the fun thing about blowing up that company was I know I can survive. Right? So if I've blown up one, I've blown up a couple more too. But it's in that ability to have faith in yourself that makes a world of a difference. Because I've been around, I coach people for a living, and sometimes we'll go into a business where it's a son and a father, right? The father is the powerhouse, right? Who's the entrepreneur who failed and got up and did it again. And the son has lived a pretty cushy sort of lifestyle, if you will. And there's fear in that kid's eyes because they never failed.
Right.
And it's amazing that you can be around big money people, but they've never failed. So they're often ruled by fear. Right. And so I call it my blow up, if you will. I call it my real life MBA. Right? I got a real life MBA.
Yeah, I can relate.
Right, writing it down.
I've lost magnificent sums of money, and and those experiences are priceless. Yeah, that is a real life MBA.
But it's priceless. But it teaches you something at your core, is that you can do it again.
It does eliminate the fear and the doubt. There's a process, I can't remember where I first heard it, but I'm borrowing it from somewhere, called fear setting. Just when you find yourself hesitating because of some sort of fearfulness, to just really stop and ask yourself, what is truly the worst that could happen? You know, what so you eat rice and beans instead of filet mignon. I mean, is that so bad, in relation to taking your shot to live the life of your dreams? So it's good stuff. That's interesting.
It's powerful, but you're tapping on it. It's called name the fear.
Okay.
I've had clients in places where they're about to lose everything. They're about to get a divorce. Or one time it was a gentleman was about to go to prison because he made some bad choices.
Well,
and the distinction...
that's not a good place anybody wants to find themselves
Right,
in.
you don't want to be an entrepreneur in prison. But hey, Bernie Madoff's making a lot of money with the hot chocolate. Hats off to him. But the distinction, what I said to them, it's a very simple thing. I'm like, okay, you've lost everything. Now what are you going to do next? You got two choices. You can go put a bullet in your head. Are you going to do that? And the answer is hopefully.
Hopefully not.
Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the answer is no.
Yeah.
And then I say, what are you going to do? You're going to figure it out. Right? Because successful people didn't get to where they got by mistake or by accident or by luck. Luck's part of it.
Sure.
But there's part of that drive. So even if it's all taken away, they can never take away the knowledge that you did it or that you were the kind of person that put yourself in the arena. Like just something like with your people that they had a $5 million listing and they lose it, right? Which is devastating to a person. But still, the bigger news is you were in the arena, right? You got a $5 million listing. And if you got one, you can get two. Right? It's about being in the arena, because the hard truth about life, as we all know, is you don't hit all the time. Right? Like a funny thing is, like talk in sales or with our guys, like baseball, right? Baseball is a proverbial analogy, right? You get to the Hall of Fame, right? You're an icon in the Hall of Fame. Okay? If you're an icon in the Hall of Fame and you consistently batted 300, what that really means is you struck out and flew out 700% of the time. Right?
Yeah.
7 out of 10 times you went back to the bench, right? You didn't quit. You didn't say, man, I'm taking my ball and going home.
Right.
You got back to bat. And I think people forget about that. Like success is mostly about missing, right?
Yeah.
You miss. I mean, like think about it. Like, all right, how many prospects you have? Okay, I got like 30 of them. All right, how many clients am I going to get out of these 30? 3, 5, 10?
Right.
That means you
fail your way to success.
You failed 27. You got no'd 27 times, 30 times. And do you have the fortitude to get through the no's? And that becomes another fun sort of side conversation is, how does one build fortitude to say no? Like, how do you armor the soul, if you will? Like, how do you keep going when everything else is going sideways, or you're bored, or you're disappointed, or you just hate your life, you hate your business, you're burnt out, you're boozing too much, who knows? Right? So, like, how do you get back on path? Right? Like, how do you stay on path? I like to call it, how do you practice the way?
Okay.
Right? The way, right? In my world, I just did a presentation yesterday out in Texas. Magically, I wasn't actually in Texas, but my image was in Texas. It was this distinction of there are different levels to a business, and most people get caught in the first level. And what that first level is survival. Right? Anytime that you start a business, you're looking to do whatever it takes within moral and ethical bounds to keep that business alive.
Right.
Or if you're in sales, to get that first check so you can pay the mortgage. So you're banging on doors, you're making phone calls, smiling and dialing 100 dials a day. And there's always this fear that your business is going to go away.
Sure.
Right? In my particular world, where we specialize the business owners and financial advisors. Right? Financial advising basically eats people. Right? Most people don't make it in the business. Right? So there's an 80% washout rate after the first 5 years. Then after that next 5 years to the 10-year mark, there's roughly another 60% washout. So most people don't make it.
And I'd like to pause there real quick, because it's part of the reason I've been really excited to this conversation is that there's a lot of parallels between the world of financial advisors and realtors. I mean, there's a giant attrition rate for realtors in our industry as well. That's why I thought that, a lot of our audience is more realtor based, but I thought there's going to be some great parallels.
Okay, good. The principles apply the same. The principles are universal. I mean, it's one of the benefits. It's kind of like in the martial arts. Right? One of my benefits is I could translate the art into business. That's how I believe I got my slight edge. So if we go back to survival and the 4 stages of a business. So in survival, I'm sure you've seen it. Oh my God, Robert, oh my God, guess what? I sold a house. I can't believe it. They actually trusted me to sell a house. It's amazing. So your first one, right? And then another miracle happens. You sell your second one. But to get that first one, you ran through walls, you made 100 dials, you're calling FSBO people, you're doubting yourself, you're getting your licenses. It was not easy. Okay? But then you get the next one, but you're still grinding. You're grinding, right? 80-hour weeks, not 40-hour weeks, 40-hour days. Grinding. Then what happens in the grind, unless you actually have a particular graduation ceremony, if you will, right? Your son's going to graduate high school, right? There's going to be a ceremony, they're going to give him a diploma, right? There's going to be an actual symbolic means that, okay, son, it's time for you to change your path, right? It's time to go to college, right? Or to go into the military or go to trades, whatever that next level is. And then once you get to that next level, like college, there's another graduation ceremony. But each time you graduate, it symbolizes that it's time to take new and different action, right? In the business world or in sales or in the world of money, there is no graduation ceremony.
That's a great point.
Right? So we don't know when to change tactics, right? So in our world, right, there's survival, doing whatever it takes to make it. And this is what the industry, this is how most people live, in survival mode, paycheck to paycheck, okay? Not nice, not fun. But after that becomes another point where it's thriving. Like in your industry, probably if a real estate agent has made it a certain amount of years, they probably actually know what they're doing.
Correct.
Right? They know what they're doing. Now it's really time to thrive. And the fun thing about thriving, I use an analogy about dogs, okay? Like a dog. You be in a presentation, I'm like, does everybody know what a dog is? And people are like, yeah, but I have 17 cats. I'm like, this is not for you then. I don't work with cat people. See, violate my audience. Sorry, all you cat people out there.
You lost half of them.
I just lost all the. That's all right. It's all right. Not made for everybody. But it's that idea of that dog, right? Okay, who knows a good dog? People usually raise their hand. I say, okay, what is a good dog? Like, what is a good dog? What does that mean? They
obedient.
They listen. They're obedient. They follow commands. You're not worried about them. They don't bite the neighbor. They don't pee on your leg, right? you don't worry about the dog. Okay? Then I say, okay, what's a bad dog? Bad dog doesn't listen, bites your leg, pees on your leg. You're worried about the dog. The dog's running around barking. It's a nuisance. Now, here comes an interesting thing about a bad dog. Do you want more of that bad dog in your life? Or does the dog get marginalized? Now he's out in the backyard, or now he's tied up to the doghouse way in the back of the property. A bad dog gets marginalized. A good dog gets more in the family. Like today, I had my dogs out in the truck. We're driving around town. So our dogs come with us everywhere. I have good dogs. Now I'll ask a very deep question. How does a good dog become a good dog? And people often scratch their heads and say, well, I trained him. I'm like, right. Now let me tell you something else. Your dog doesn't speak English. Right? Your dog speaks dog. So, but how did you train him? Well, you gave him clear commands, right? And not only did you give him clear commands, you reinforced them, right? And you were consistent with those commands. And then the dog began to learn. Now, you may be wondering, where the hell am I going with this analogy? Okay, that dog is our businesses, right? Do you own the business? Do you own the dog, or does the dog own you? If you're staying up late at night, you're not knowing where the next lead's coming from, you don't even know where your next paycheck is coming from, that means you got a bad dog, right? If you have a good dog, it's trained properly. So, and that's where the level of thriving comes in, that you begin to train the dog so that the dog produces what you want it to produce, right? And thriving is about having the things that you want, right? Whether that's a house, cars, vacation homes, it doesn't matter what it is, right? But thriving has to be defined by the individual. Because if the individual doesn't define it, that means somebody else does. Right? And that gets tricky. And that's something that's hard for people to wrap their heads around. Like, what does success mean?
Right.
It means what you want it to mean. You need to define it, because if you don't define it, I'm going to define it for you, which could be dangerous because I'm not you. Right.
I'd say, how I define success is hitting a target. In order to be successful, you have to have a target, identify what that is, and that way you've got something to aim for, and when you've hit it, you are successful, which I think is something completely different than fulfillment. That being fulfilled and being successful are two very different things. I'm sure you deal with that with some of the more productive people that you coach.
Well, here's the interesting thing about setting targets and fulfillment. I call it in the way of the achiever, right? So an achiever, dealing with high-level achievers is what I do. I have the privilege of so I do all day, every day. Sometimes it drives me a little crazy. But in the way of the achiever, there's something difficult for all of us to understand. It's the way of the mountain climber, right? And the reason why I allocate it to mountains is that why do people climb mountains? Okay, right? If you think about it, it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
Sir Edmund Hillary was the first Englishman, or he actually was a New Zealand guy, to climb Mount Everest.
Okay.
Right? And after he got down from the mountain, the reporters were all there. Oh my God, this is amazing! First European to climb Mount Everest. And they asked him, Sir Edmund Hillary, why'd you climb it? He couldn't language it, and in a moment of frustration, he said, "Because it's there." Right?
Yeah.
Because it's there. The East River is there too. I've never seen anybody swim across it, right? Nor do I see anybody swim across Sarasota Bay. I mean, they're all there. But why do people climb mountains? And the simple reason is it's because they're hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it calls forth more of your potential.
Yeah.
Right? And here's what a true mountain climber does, right? Spends time training, climbing, sweating, bleeding, being in misery, suffering, enduring, gets to the top of the mountain. Okay, and then when he's up at the top of the mountain, it's that apex where you just look out. It's that moment of, it's the sublime. Right? I'm touching the face of God.
Yeah.
Right? Here's what he does. Now, most mountains run in ranges, right? If you're climbing a mountain that's not a range, that means you're climbing a volcano, and that's usually a bad idea. But here's what the mountain climber doesn't do. Gets to the top of the mountain, sees a massive expanse. He doesn't do this. He's like, son of a biscuit, I can't believe there's more mountains. No one told me about this. This is horrible. And trudges his way down. Right? That's what not an achiever or the way the mountain climber does.
Right.
He says, oh my God, there's more mountains to climb. Right? Because the really interesting thing about mountain climbing, just like in business, is the victory is temporal, right? It doesn't last. But you think about what do we spend most of the time doing? Like Miley Cyrus says, it's the climb.
Not super familiar with the.
Oh no, you don't heard the climb.
Miley quotes or songs.
For that, Miley Cyrus.
That's funny.
You know? Like what is the other song? Like a cannonball.
Yeah, I know that one.
See, but it's that essence. It's the climb that matters. Right? And so if we go back to that thrival stage, and like you just said, it's a target, right? That success is a target. But once you hit the target, it's now time to reset it. Because as an achiever, there's this distinction about being content with discontentedness, that it is your very nature to be discontent, right? That this, whatever this is not enough, and nor will it ever be. And that's okay, because you have an understanding of self that says, I need to drive, I need to strive, because I'm aware enough to realize that attention is always going to be going somewhere, right? It's either to go somewhere by design, or it's going to go somewhere by default. That's
good.
Right? You can either binge watch Netflix, right? Or you go to the gym. In the big picture of things, neither one actually matters.
If you're smart, you can multitask and put on Netflix while you're at the gym.
You can put on Netflix while you're at the gym, right? Or you go build a company, right? Or you go discover, there are many ways to waste time.
Yes, there are. And, to come back to it real quick, you said you've never seen anybody swim across Sarasota Bay. We actually have a realtor power couple, Adam and Tanya Zuko, who Adam is a triathlete.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if he's like completely made it across the bay, but I'm sure if anybody could, it's him. But it's something you don't see every day.
I haven't seen him swim across the bay yet, right?
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we've done a great preamble to 2002 so far, because you kind of told us all the events that led up to 2002. And so tell us more about getting results here. So, launched the company in 2002.
We launched the company in 2002 in a single bedroom apartment. Now this is going to sound woeful, but it's really not, on the beach in San Diego, right? We had a little place. It was Lauren and I working back to back. We very quickly discovered something, which is a great business point if you work with your spouse or if you work in close quarters. Walls and doors are very, very productive, right? We learned that walls and doors are the most important thing for our business and also the most important thing for our marriage. And it was an interesting discovery, because in coaching, you're talking usually about something that could be interesting, and it gets really distracting if I'm listening to her, she's listening to me. Yeah. So that simple separation did wonders for our business.
Good info.
So that's a little quip.
Okay.
if you will. And then we built it from there. We built it from I don't know if the old-fashioned way, but we would go out and speak. We would go out and go to branch offices around the country and go spread the word of what a life in business what a life and business by design would be like. And then most importantly, it's possible. What's real fun about business, if you own your own shop or you're in control of your own income, that's who we specialize in. We specialize in people who are in control of their own income.
Yeah.
Is that you can design it any way that you want. There are no hard and fast rules, right? Like, who made up 9 to 5, right?
True.
What is the essence of a 40-hour work week? And if you're an elite performer, you're always working. There is no such thing as 9 to 5.
Sure, that is the truth.
Right? And it doesn't mean that you're working 24 hours a day. It just means you're bringing, that you're a professional athlete. And that as an athlete, everything that you do counts. Right? And the fun thing, I'll tell the slight edge story at some time, and it's those slight edges that really separate people.
Absolutely. I know we actually recently had a past Olympian join our company recently, a figure skater in 2006. And, and to your point there, those slight edges, you win the Olympics oftentimes by, 0.0003 of a second or score or whatever the case is. I mean, it's a very minute little incremental win, to train at that level is a completely different discipline, of course, than...
That's right. It's so slight edges pay off exponentially, right? And especially at that level, right? The difference between gold and silver and bronze, Wheaties box, or back home working at Walmart, is slight. So what's fun? So I'll go back to the biz, then we'll talk about slight edges. And so basically, Lauren and I we just worked and plowed out. And I think one of the reasons why we're successful is because we love what we do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? It's about for me, it's about the path and about the way. My martial art, it was a funny story about the martial arts. So as I was getting better and better in the art, my business was improving. I was like, oh my God, what if I share this with my entire staff? What if I taught my staff jiu-jitsu or introduced them to sensei? That would be amazing. Oh my God, it would be like ninjas, and we'd take the business to the next level. I'm really fired up about this. So I had that was probably 18 people reporting to me then. And we said, okay, told them out the dojo, told them where it was. It was in Upton Street in Boston. We're all going to go. Very excited. I'm the first one there. I'm talking to sensei. I'm like, oh, they're going to come. This is going to be excellent. I'm going to have this whole team of people learning the art and use the skills and the principles. So nobody showed up, right? So I'm allegedly the boss, right? And nobody shows up. And sensei goes like, interesting, Ken. You're forgetting something. I'm like, what's that? He's like, what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring your business people to the dojo, right? What you should really do is bring the dojo to them, right? Because the way of America is business. In Japan, martial arts and writing the weirdo stuff with the swords and the top knots, all right? That makes sense there. But it doesn't make sense here, right? But business makes sense, right? And if you can help inculcate the way in people, then they blossom. Because the funny thing about business, you may have discovered, no matter how much money you make, there is always more to make. And no matter how successful you feel, suddenly you meet someone 5, 10, 20 times more successful. So business is a game that can never be won.
That's true, right? I've heard it said before that someone who possesses the knowledge that they have enough possesses something that a lot of people never attain. And as an entrepreneur, capitalist, you do always want to kind of strive and climb the mountain for the next level, but you do have to find some contentment at a certain point as well, or at least contentment in the process, or
that's where the contentment lies. It's in the climb, it's in the training, just like your Olympiad. Right. What she really had to do was enjoy practice. Right. I heard a great discipline. I heard a great distinction the other day. Like, how does it was in the weightlifting circles, right? Olympic lifters. So a guy comes up to a big Olympic coach and says, like, how do you get to those elite levels? Like, what separates that athlete from everybody else? There's top tier, then there's top tier. And he's like, well, the people who go really to the top, what they can do really well is deal with boredom. Is doing the same thing again and again and again.
There's a lot of wisdom in that.
There's a shit ton of wisdom in that one. Right? It's doing it again, but doing it again and being bored, but still being present. Because like in the martial arts, so it happens after you get your black belt, you start doing the same stuff over and over and over again, right? In the beginning, your mind's exploding from all the stuff that you're learning. But as you get deeper and deeper into the art, it takes longer and longer, and your insights are smaller, but those small little insights are phenomenal, right? But you only get them from doing it again.
Right.
So just like in any sales process, right, it comes back to, okay, what is your sales process? Do you actually have one, right? From the moment you meet a client or how you even attract a client or a prospect, is it planned out, and do you know where you are in your process at all times? Because if you don't know where you are, then you can, we call them having premature sales conversations when you should be marketing, or you're still marketing when you should be closing. But unless you have that mapped out, it's easy to get lost. Right? That's why on the back, on your cup right there, right, it says structure sets you free.
Yes, it does.
Right? So it's that distinction. If you have a structured sales process, you now have freedom.
That's a great point. Yeah, and it does become, you can only build on success. It does become a very repetitive, monotonous process for some of our most effective salespeople. And again, you're dealing mostly in the financial service industry. So I mean, maybe you could talk about who it is typically that you're working with these days, and who is your typical client, not names, but the profile of who your typical client is.
Great question.
Yeah.
Our typical profile is a financial advisor. It's usually married, male, 2 kids. They have a tendency to lean to the right, and they also like guns. Right?
Well, that's pretty. I wasn't expecting such specificity, but that's fantastic.
Doing it right. It's called niche weird. Right. So you know where you're at advantage. Right. And if you know where you're at advantage, you can then play to that advantage. Right. And every business has a pattern. Right. Even if we looked at your business people, you would begin to see a pattern because you attract a certain slice of people. Because the fun thing about businesses, which people don't realize, ultimately they become a reflection of the owner. Right? People say, oh no, it's random, Ken, it's random. It's completely random. And I say, well, if we really get back to the definition of random means that all inputs are random. There is one consistent input in your business. Right?
That is true.
Right? And do you know what that is?
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
Right? And so we literally begin to reflect unconsciously, right? But if we can make it conscious, then once again, that simple little slogan, structure now sets you free. Right? So people will come to us because they're bored, right, or their business is flatline. And what's really tough, someone making $500,000 a year, $750,000, $1.5 million, they really don't have a peer group. It's kind of tough. You're making $1 million and going, I'm bored.
Who do you
this isn't fun anymore. Like,
you can't complain to people about that.
Yeah, you can't talk to anybody, right? So you don't have a peer group, right? And so what we end up doing is become not only that peer group, but the coach that understands. Yeah, I get it, right? Like a fun story I always tell is like in everyone's life, and once again, I don't really know the audience I'm speaking to, but I'm going to go out on a limb. In everybody's life at one point, $10,000 is a game changer. Oh my God, if I can make an extra 10 grand, woo! Yeah. I'll run through a wall. I'll do anything to make that $10,000, right? So you're gunned up and you're going. And then a weird thing happens. Then you're like, oh man, it's a $10,000 opportunity. You have to run through that wall to go get it. And you're like, man, this is a really nice shirt. I just fixed my hair and my shoes. I don't want to get dirty. So a strange thing is that in time, money becomes a non-motivator.
That's true.
Because it's not about money. And that gets a little weird in a money-based business, right? Like in finance. So if you're not motivated by the money anymore, what's that motivation?
Yeah.
Sometimes people just show up and just go through the motions, right? Rinse, wash, repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. I call them that they gray out. I don't mean their hair. I mean they gray out. They're boring, right? And maybe you're some few of you out there, or you know it, you're bored because you're boring. Right? Because you keep doing the same stuff. Now, once again, I'm sort of contradicting myself. Well, Ken, you said in business, you got to have structure, right? That sets you free. Right, you do. Okay. But the other side of it is, okay, what are you doing for the juice part, right? That slight edge. What are you doing for your go tank? Like, Is your business in alignment with you? Right? Are you getting clients in alignment with you? So I mentioned the guns thing, right? So I like to shoot. I'm a sporting clay guy. I'm a big shot.
Yeah, I love that
love
stuff.
shotgun sports.
Yeah, me too.
I don't really like prospecting, right? And I've done presentations across the country, hundreds of them, and I said, okay, who likes to prospect? Who likes to prospect? Come on.
Yeah, generally, I mean, there's a couple freaks of nature.
One person in Texas, right? Lubbock, Texas, right? They said, Ken, I love to prospect. I just love it. I love it. His name is Russell. And literally, he's a client of mine now. But the way he was prospecting, I got it, why he loved it. Because he was prospecting in alignment with him.
Okay.
Right? You see, shotgunning is my little trick on prospecting. I love to go shoot clays and stuff and go play with guns.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm much more interested in that, especially where I am at the business. I don't need an extra $10,000, right? Oh, let's go to the chamber event and network.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or BNI, no offense, right? It's just not in alignment with me. But God, I've gone to Texas many times just to go shoot. I've set up gun stuff.
Yeah,
and that gets me excited to go. And then like, all right, since I'm here, why don't I talk to XYZ? Or why don't we invite them to come out shooting? But right, so it's in alignment. Because we always have to be prospecting. But if it doesn't call to us, we stop doing it. Like in financial services, a lot of guys will start their businesses by doing Social Security seminars in the basement of the public library.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you're in financial services, you know this story, right? You're doing it in the basement of the, you're doing your best and you're getting business, it's building, but it's kind of like grinding off your face, right? Going back to these levels of business, right? Now we're all tough. We can grind off our noses, but I grew up in New Jersey, but by the time you get to your teeth, it's not as motivating. You don't jump out of bed the next day, right? You begin to question why you're doing it. But
so when someone's lost their way and they are succeeding by monetary definitions, how do you bring them back into the game and get them excited? Are there some tricks for that?
Are there tricks for that? The fast trick is an intervention. Is someone like me or someone like our company because humans, we're complex creatures, and especially if you're successful, sometimes you may have this thing called an ego.
Probably.
Right? And it may be a little big at times. It's just the hard truth, right? You think you're a big swing and so on, right? So sometimes it's not this proverbial smack in the head. It's saying, dude, you're bored. You're operating under your potential. I know it, you know it, right? What are you going to do about it? Dude, you can crush it. I'll never forget. It was about 15, 20 years ago. I'm literally sitting down with one of my clients. He's handsome, he's articulate, he's intelligent, he's got all those things. And I'm saying, and I'm like, Greg, his name's Greg. Well, hopefully you won't watch this, Greg. But I'm like, dude, you are playing so underneath your potential. Of all the people I've met in my life, you have the ability to be like the president of the United States, like that charismatic and
it's a strong presence.
I mean, like at a whole different level. But he didn't see himself that way, right? He needed to step up into that potential, just like if you're heavy hitters or whatever they are, right? There's more there. But you got to give them what's it called? It's called a compelling future, right? Like, what are you living into, right? Like, what are you really creating or what do you want to do? Because sometimes people are still in survival mode, that they're holding on to everything like it's all going to go away, and they're making Godzilla dollars, or their wiring is off. Right? They could be psychopaths too, or sociopaths. That happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, we all get scarred up.
That's when the rabbit starts winking.
we carry things with us, and at the risk of being a little too open, maybe. I mean, I feel like sometimes I carry a little PTSD around still from 2009, from the Great Recession. In terms of potential, I've been really working on myself in this regard that, we're succeeding now. Life is good. We're in a great business climate. But I do feel like I play it a little safer than I should in fear of experiencing some of those things that I went through in the past. So, I mean, what would you speak to someone in that sort of position? I'm asking for a friend.
You're asking for a friend?
No, just joking.
So is it a distinction of what can I do to play bigger, or is it like how do I stay away from fear?
I guess a combo of the two in terms of potential, because what led me to that idea was that, you're speaking of someone living beneath their potential, and
And you
how do you
Do you feel that
recognize? It's a great question, and
Well, you are.
I'm going to make sure that this does not turn into a psychoanalytic session
dangerous.
of myself here.
Well, it already is.
Yeah, how do you
So
how do you recognize potential in others? How do you recognize if they're living up to
How
that
do I
or
recognize
not?
potential?
Yeah.
That's a great. Now I'm going to get really weird for a little bit. Okay, the real weird part is there's a concept called Sadguru.
Okay.
Right? And what Sadguru means, it's your inner teacher, right? The inner teacher attracts the guru, attracts the outer teacher, right? So usually I'm in the role of the guru, right? But the interesting thing is it's the Sadguru. There's something in that person that wants to be called forth. And I call it's the Sadguru, right? You're looking for the teacher to evolve you to the next level. Right, it's like, and it's a fascinating thing. That's where that potential is. It's in the desire of the individual to improve, but the individual also has to realize something. You can never hit your potential. Your potential is infinite.
Right.
Right. So, and I hear that a lot. Well, Ken, I want to hit more of my potential. I'm like, well, how much more do you want to hit? I want to use all of it up. I'm like, you can't. Right? Because the more that you achieve, the more you can achieve.
Correct. Yeah.
But the bigger conversation is, are you in alignment with self? Right? Are you clear on what your design is? Right? Because if we're not clear on what our design is, it's really easy to get caught up in slipstreams and other stuff, or to get caught up in the noise instead of what the signal is.
Right.
And in our world of infinite wealth, right? Of, like, once again, if we go to the yacht club, right? Man, we just crushed that thing. We're like kings of the world. And then somebody's going to pull up in their 100-foot boat, and we're going to be like,
Yeah.
oh, what are they doing? And they'll be like, I wrote a program, or this, or I'm a doctor. So unless we're really clear on what we want, we get caught up in other people's slipstreams. I like that word today. I don't know, for some.
No, it's a great thing to talk about, especially in Sarasota. I mean, at any given moment, and at a red light, you'll have a Bentley and a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce and a Lamborghini all on all sides of you,
and a Prius.
Yeah.
Teslas, like a horde of Teslas.
Yeah. I mean, and it is, I think, I call it, I mean, we have some different vernaculars, but similar ideas, that I would call it making sure that you have an inner scorecard versus an outer scorecard. Right. And nothing wrong with having any nice things. That's not what this is about, but at least having an internal sense of, satisfaction that,
because that's how you know that you're winning. Right? The funny thing, I'll tell my wife right now, I'm like, man, Lauren, I never felt so poor until I moved into the rich neighborhood.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, which is true.
Right, it's the principle of conformity, I think, if I'm correct.
You're right, or we want to be like the people that we surround ourselves with. But what's interesting, as opportunities open, right, the higher you climb up the mountain, the more mountains you see. Right. And so it becomes this thing of, okay, really, internally, what is my design? So we'll help people really design their business, their cadence of their weeks, like so it works for them. When people start thinking about a coach, they're like, oh my God, more work, more stuff. In reality, it's not, right? Sometimes they, well, Ken, what is it that you really do? I'm saying, well, you ever watch Billions? They're like, yeah, well, I have a company of Wendy's. Like, we're Wendy's, right? You don't look like a Wendy, well, yeah, but my wife looks better than Wendy, right? So that's what we do. It's a performance concept, because as an individual, like you, for business owner, you really want to hit your potential? Eliminate yourself. Right? Remove yourself from all things.
Yeah, I've done my best. I'm working on it.
Allow the company to run itself without interference from you. And that would evolve you to the next level. Right. Because who you are, your drive, your determination, and your ability to see opportunities and take risks doesn't go away, right? It just evolves to another level.
Exactly.
Because one of the dangerous things about any office or any business, it gives us an opportunity to be busy, gives us an opportunity to feel important.
Right.
It gives us an opportunity to screw things up.
Right.
Or break things so we feel important by fixing them. Right. But if we can figure out how to have that entity run itself, then that's the next evolution of you.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the mastery concept.
Yes.
Right. So that'd be the third level. Right. So it goes survival, thrival, then mastery. And mastery is just getting that business so that it's beautiful, right? Like it's a work of art, like being an artisan if you will. It may not be the biggest, it may not be the best, but beauty.
Right, right.
Harmony. It's a wonderful Japanese term called shibumi. And what shibumi means is effortless perfection, right? Well, I've gone Hindu on you. Now I'm going Japanese.
Well,
I'm trying to impress you how smart I am.
Yeah, it's working. I'm glad you gave a definition, because I would have probably
Shibumi.
I would have assigned a different meaning to that.
It's that Zen thing. It's a martial art. I mean, I got not corrupted, but I was taken on a different path at a young age.
Well, and this, I'm enjoying this so much, because, like you said, at times it feels like there's not a lot of support for people who are succeeding at a very high level, and for the realtors that are possibly watching this right now, the last 15, 20 minutes may have been like, whew, that are in the survival mode,
right?
Because you can't relate to what it feels like to just kind of be succeeding so much that you're bored and you don't feel like you're stretching and growing. But these are these are real issues.
These are real first world problems.
It's kind of, it feels obnoxious to be actually admitting that
America.
These are
capitalism.
But they are difficulties that a lot of people encounter.
Absolutely. So if we fall back into survival mode, right? So there's realtors out there, right? So okay, how do we get out of that? Okay, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's structure sets you free, right? Just if you think out there I'm going to simplify things. Think there's a great war between order and chaos.
Okay.
Right, or the noise and the signal. I messed up my hands. I'm confusing people with my sign language. Order and chaos, the signal and the noise.
Okay.
If we can begin to wrap our heads around that and say, okay, there's a lot of chaos out there. There's a lot of randomness. Okay, what's really going to move my business forward? And do I have a structure for it? Do I know how do I define I had a good day? How do I define that I had a good week?
That's a great question for people to dive into.
And what gets dangerous is, how do I define a good month? And usually people go, well, it's how much money I made, right? It's based on production. So they begin to tie identity into production. I am a $1 million producer. I did $100,000 this month. I did $20,000. Whatever that dollar amount is, people will take pride in that. And I'll say pride goeth before the fall.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's something very, very dangerous about production in general, is that you don't have direct control over production. Right? In my world, you can't control when the person has a liquidity event, right? Or the 1031 exchange comes in. Right? Or someone's going to choose to sell a house, or they have a large amount of cash. You can't control any of that stuff, but yet you tie your identity to it. So in simple sense, activity drives production.
Right.
Okay, right activity drives right production. Okay, with your experience and your agent's experience, you guys can all figure out what the right activity is. And then it's up to the individual to figure out what is that optimum level of activity for them that they can do each day.
Right.
I'm going to make a quick distinction between optimum and maximum.
Okay.
Because I don't know if Anthony Robbins has ever said this, but I'm sure some big motivational speaker has said something like this. If you've ever been to a sales meeting or with the rah-rah guys come out and they're like, every day is a Super Bowl. Every day you have to give 110%, because if you're not giving 110%, you're being lazy, you're going to fail, you're this, that, and the other thing. Okay, so if we just look at common math and say 110%, is it possible to give 110% of anything? Is it possible that if you have a 30-gallon tank to burn 33 gallons of fuel? The answer is no.
No.
Right? It is not possible to give 110%.
Right.
Okay?
Nor should you.
Nor should you. Well, here go another level. Can you give 100%? No.
Not if you want everything else in your life to not fall apart.
Well, how about this one? Not if you you can give 100%, but you're just not coming back. Right? Guys in Afghanistan, girls in Afghanistan and Iraq, you give 100%, it means you're not coming home.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the illusions we need to get over, because so many sales managers out there beat their people down with the concept of guilt. Right? You're not trying hard enough. You're not giving 110%. You're not going enough. And that gets in people's skulls. Right? And it begins to resonate. It begins to worm into their heads. They're like, yeah, you know what? I am not good enough. I am not putting enough effort.
That's a very interesting observation that, in terms of fulfillment, progress and balancing it all? And, do you have any wisdom associated with maintaining balance? And
So let's go back to the distinction between optimum and maximum, right? Everybody's got a car, right? So for all of you watching today, I want you, next time you visit your car, right? Your car, not an Uber, right? Your car, notice what the speedometer goes up to, right? And that's
140, 120, I
If
don't
you have
know.
a German car, 160,
Yeah.
right? My truck, 120.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the maximum speed of that vehicle. Okay. Now I want you to imagine going maximum speed from your house to your office in the commute.
That's a great analogy.
Right, maximum speed, and let's just play a little bit. First thing we're going to play with, you actually make it. Okay, so you didn't get shot by the police, or you didn't crash or kill 17 people. Let's make believe you actually made it to the parking lot, and you're sitting in the parking lot shaking. Right, you may have peed in your pants a little bit, and you might be vomiting because you almost died 9 times.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just think about something. How excited would be to do that again tomorrow? You wouldn't.
Right.
Right? Now that's the problem with maximum effort. It's not repeatable, right? But if you go to the gym, right, you're an Olympic skater, right? It's about repeating, right? To get gains, you got to do it again, right? To be successful in business, it's again-ness. It's your optimal amount, whether that's contacts, phone calls, visits, networking stuff. Like, what are the quantifiable things to get clients that you can do each day? So each day you can tell yourself, I did my duty. I did my job. So you can go home with pride instead of saying, I'm not sure if I did. I feel like a loser. I didn't close anything. I didn't make any money today. And that's the killer, right?
Right.
The killer is doubt.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you got that helmet on, right, and you're doing it, we call it an anvil project, right? You just bang, bang, bang. But you define what it is, right? And that's the beautiful thing. Like, I just got off a call earlier today with one of my guys. We had him set up we call it a rainmaker anvil. Being a rainmaker means you're out in the mix making things happen. And his distinction was, man, I don't even know if I can do that. I'm like, good, we can do one. We can do one a week. But that begins that progress, right? And same thing with someone in survival mode. It's breaking down, what do I need to do optimally today? Oh, man, but Johnny's doing 49 outbound calls. He's a machine. Why don't I do 49? Well, because you're not Johnny.
Yeah.
Like, what works for you?
Yeah.
Well, is 12 enough? I don't know. Let's try it, right? Then begin to track, right? Create a game out of it so that you stay on course. Because once again, it's the journey to
Right.
it, right? And it's consistent activity provides consistent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that, and I mean, we could keep going in depth, quite a long time. We might have to have a round 2 of this. I've got beside me here a couple books. I've got
awesome.
the Journey, the Evolution of a Financial Advisor.
Good. So
So tell us a little bit
this
about
book it's a parable. Now it says the journey evolution of a financial advisor for a reason, because our niche is financial services. I could have the evolution of a salesperson on that, but I decided to go deeper into I know what I'm hunting for, if you will.
Sure, love it.
So that's a story about a parable.
Okay.
And there's many principles in that particular book. It's about a person who is disenfranchised with his business. He's successful, etc. And he bumps into an individual named Shane Tavar, who's basically that business sensei.
Okay.
And he takes him through a series of events to help hone his mind and get him prepared for his business. Like one of the clients that everybody laughs about in there, there's a client in there named Biggest, right? And Biggest is that client, right, who abuses you, who says, man, just get me the tickets to the game and don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. Some of us have clients that have lots of wealth or lots of pull with us, and they may not treat us as we should be treated, if you will. And it's sort of a story that branches off of that. And like, how do you become in alignment with your business? How do you own the business instead of the business owning you?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I love that. And I made a resolution to get, I read a lot. I love reading, but I've kind of got off track a little bit just with life and kids and work and everything. And so reading a book a week this year, and look forward to that. And also this one, which is The Hijacker, Overcoming Self-Sabotaging Behavior by your wife, Lauren. Tell us a little bit about this one.
That book will change your life.
Yeah.
Right? It's not hard to summarize, but the distinction is if you saw the movie Aliens, right? If you remember way back when, the first Alien, and if you saw the first Alien, if you remember when the pod opened up and that thing came out of the pod and smashed on somebody's face, right? So all of you out there, I want you to imagine that you had an alien on your face from the day that you were born. Okay, from the day that you were born, if you had an alien on your face, you would believe that's normal, right? Everything that you looked at,
I guess so.
This is what normal life looks like. So in that book, she highlights this concept called an operating system. Each of us has an alien or a filter that we look at life through, right? And until we pull back this alien, we truly can't see.
Okay.
So in sales, right, guy walks into a hardware store and says, hey, I'd like a 1/4-inch drill bit. Okay. Now the big question is, what is he really buying? Okay. Now most people go, well, with a 1/4-inch drill bit, he's obviously buying a 1/4-inch hole.
Yeah, I would say he's buying a solution to a problem.
Right. Right. But the 1/4-inch hole, you never walk into somebody's house, they don't have a display of 1/4-inch holes. Right. And the real reason that individual is buying that 1/4-inch drill bit is to put that hole in the wall, to hang that Renoir in their front entranceway so they can show their friends how erudite they are. Right. Because there's often a decision tree behind buying something that we're often unconscious to. Now, if you read that book, there's a story about me in there and my operating system. I don't know if I should share the story or not. Or I will. Okay. Every time, I don't care. Okay, every time I see a Prius, right, I want to ram it off the road. Right? I really do. Unconsciously, I'd like to ram. And if you drive a Prius out there, I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. Right? And I love electric cars. Electric vehicles are fine. It's just this Prius that just gets under my skin, the little daisy on the front thing.
I'm going to get you a little Matchbox Prius.
Yeah. And still to this day, I can see it, and I'm just like, oh, just a little tap. Just a little tap. And guess what? I have a big truck, right? I have a big truck. But there's a reason under that. It goes deeper than just a Prius, right? A Prius is symbolizing something to me in my unconscious, right? Now, luckily, I've been able to bring it conscious so I don't crash into Priuses, right? But it's that driver. It's the same reason why people dress the way they do. Why do some people with means have a pickup truck and other people with means have a Rolls Royce?
It's a signaling.
Right, it's signaling, right? But often it's unconscious, right? And the operating system, that book will help you discover like what your operating system is, and do you own it, or does it own you? Right? It's opening up these levels of awareness. You're like, oh man, wow. See, operating system happened when we're kids, right? As a child, literally, if you and I look out the window right now, right, you would say, well, Ken, I see a building, I see a woman walking, I see a truck. And I'll say, that's true, but you're also looking at infinity, right? Everything is out that window, right?
Yeah.
Everything creates everything, everything causes everything. So our minds, they would short circuit, right?
Right.
Oh, man, we're looking at infinity. Just let me sit here in glory and awe.
Yeah.
So our mind makes a shortcut so we can actually stay alive.
Right.
But that shortcut or that operating system is often unconscious.
Yes.
And sometimes we won't see things that we should see.
Absolutely.
Or sometimes we see things that are not even there.
Right.
Right? And so this is about lifting that veil. Right? Or sometimes another great thing about that book is that you may have people or know people who are in and out of relationships.
Yes.
Right? It's because of their operating system.
I deal with the same sort of things with our agents, and the analogy that I would use to that, every now and then I'll have an agent say something like, "I'm not good at talking to people on the phone," or just limiting statements or stories like that. That I try to just question those and respectfully say that. Who told you that?
Yeah,
why
you made that one up, right?
Why is that?
Right?
Why do you believe this? Because a lot of times it is that it's a conditioning. It's something that's been repeated over and over to themselves,
or it unconsciously happened.
Correct.
Right, and that often can set a barrier up to our success. Right, and Lauren goes deep into. It's on Audible too, which is really cool. But of course, we never announced it, but it's on Audible.
Great.
But it's in getting those insights into self. See, to control thyself, know thyself, and to thine own self be true. The more you can understand your operating system, the more you'll understand others, and you'll begin to understand, wow, that's why that dude's got the lifted pickup with the pair of brass balls off the back, right? That's his operating system, right? Because normal people are like, that's not like that buying decision. Wow, I want to get those big brass balls and put them on the back of my hitch. It doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
It's not fathomable to me in my world.
Right, right? Just like it's not fathomable to me that anyone would buy a Prius, right? It's just, and Shane has one, right? It doesn't compute. But the reason why it doesn't compute is around this operating system, right? Jung had things called schemas, right? And a schema is a way that you look at the world.
Right.
And what Lauren's done is gone deeper into it. I mean, she is.
Oh, that's fantastic.
She's got advanced degrees in psychology. She's actually much smarter.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely looking forward to diving in that. I really appreciate you bringing these in. And
awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, we're kind of on the downhill slope, winding up here a little bit. Are there any big ideas or any things that you had hoped to cover that we hadn't really dove into today?
See, any big ideas? I think the biggest idea that I have, if in the front page of that book, in the journey, it opens up with a quote. It says, "You are the sun, and whatever you shall shine upon shall grow." Or in simple English, whatever you give attention to, you get more of. See, people think that time is the greatest gift that they have, but I'll submit it's attention, right? Because we can spend time with our kids, but not be there, right? It really comes down to attention. So if you become very mindful of where you're giving your attention, it becomes that slight edge to build your success.
Love that.
If that's what you're committed to.
Right.
Because without your attention, nothing else exists, right? Without the screaming media, right? If you don't give the media attention, it doesn't exist, right? And there's so much noise out there. You have to ask yourself, what is the signal? Like, what is your signal? And are you giving it attention? And have you created the structures to guide your attention?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what really produces the results, is your attention. Now, and time itself acts as the riverbanks of attention. So if you're running a schedule, make sure you're scheduling the things that are good for you in there, or that are clear, that actually work for you.
Yes.
Right? Because that simple little thing, structure, does set you free.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate this so much. I mean, if we switched gears just for a moment, and
sure.
We are a real estate company, of course. So I always like to just ask, what attracted you to Sarasota? How did you find this place?
So it was a funny. Well, I think it's a funny story. It was a random event, right? Back in 2008, we developed a company called Revenue Blitz. It was on the bleeding edge of technology. We were doing an online coaching platform. Okay. This was before e-learning was cool.
Yeah.
Or before people really figured it out. So
right.
We paid not to figure it out.
Yes.
So we had a big Winnebago at that time, and we wrapped the bus with Revenue Blitz and had my mug and Lauren's picture on the bus, and we drove across the country promoting Revenue Blitz. So in Kentucky, I am a celebrity. I walked off there in gas stations, like, "Oh my God, is that you?" I said, "Yes, it is." So make a long story short, we were touring the East Coast of Florida, and I had a relationship here in Bradenton.
Okay.
It was a big muckety-muck at SunTrust. It would have been perfect for our thing. And I was like, "Hey, Tom, we'd come out doing this great thing. Let's come visit. Let me tell you about it." He's like, "Sure, come on out." It's February of 08 or 09. In the middle of the season, we got a 40-foot bus. We're trying to get parking or a slip here in Sarasota, none available, so we got one in the hood in Bradenton.
Okay.
Right, squishy little place in Bradenton. And at the last minute, Tom cancels the meeting, right? And I'm like, I just drove across the state.
Yeah.
I'm like, and we're trying to find downtown Bradenton, couldn't find it, right? We're like, where do people go? We couldn't figure out Bradenton.
Right.
And so, but there was a sign on 41 that said Sarasota, right? And we're like, okay, let's go check it out. So we had a Mini Cooper that was our tow car. So we jumped in the Mini. It was a convertible.
It's not all that far from a Prius. I'm just saying.
Well, it's gas though. It's true. But I don't know. It's a Prius. I have conquered my operating system.
All right, I just got to mess with you a little bit.
It's a whole other level. I have reached the orange robes, and I am transcendent. So we drive the Marina Jacks, and we get there for sunset. We have a cocktail at sunset. The sun's coming down. The dolphins are there. The fountain in the background.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, this reminds us a lot of San Diego.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Right. You have the outer islands. And SD's got PB and OB. We have St. Armands and Siesta Key and then Turtle Beach. it was just a variety of everything. Sarasota is a small little city, and my prediction, Sarasota will become a San Diego.
I'm afraid
type,
to agree.
Afraid or whatever. It's going to become a much bigger city. And so we said at the moment, okay, we got to figure out how this is our place. This is our next place. And there's more to that story. But Lauren said, yeah, let's figure it out.
Fantastic.
Let's figure it out. And we did. We bought a little place in Laurel Park first.
Okay.
Cute, right? 1919 Laurel is our first place. Love the little house
I've got
there.
some pals in Laurel Park. It's a great neighborhood.
Great neighborhood. Great neighborhood. And then that was our first little piece of Sarasota.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, if anybody would like to reach out to you and tell you how much they enjoyed this conversation or how offended they were, or all of the
Priuses are going to save the world. How dare you?
What's the best way for someone to reach out and say hi?
The best way is jump on the website. It's gettingresultsinc.com, or once again, gettingresultsinc.com. Probably the fastest way. All our contact information's on there. So if you see our little our things, Getting Results Inc. Fastest way to get there, or you can get the books on Amazon. The Hijacker is on Audible. Mine is not yet on Audible for some reason.
Well, it sounds like you've got a project for the coming year.
Or somebody will have a project for the coming year.
You know what? I will say that when an author, narrates their own book on Audible, that means a lot to me. So I would challenge you to read your own book.
The hell is that? What the hell does that mean?
Well, I have really enjoyed this, Ken. Thank you so much for taking a Friday afternoon to have this conversation.
Awesome.
And just really appreciate you as a friend and this time that you spent, and look forward to more great conversations.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us today. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.